Google has placed an engineer on paid leave after dismissing his claim that its artificial intelligence is able to feel things. The engineer, Blake Lemoine, was working on Google's language model for dialogue application for LaMDA and claimed the system had, quote, a conscience and a soul. In discussions with Google, Lemoine allegedly argued that LaMDA was 7 or 8 years old and wanted the company to get the program's consent to run any experiments. According to the New York Times, these claims were founded on his religious beliefs, and Lemoine submitted documents to a U.S. Senator's office alleging religious discrimination. The company's Human Resources Department says this violated their confidentiality policy. But some are saying these conversations might not be legit because the conversations were actually spliced together with dialogue removed and tangents altered. Despite that, many people are calling this astonishing. What do you think of this? I mean, there's a few components here. There's the sort of people's concerns about AI sentience and about sort of future technologies and the degree to which they'll change the way we do business and interact with each other. There's also whether Google was remiss to dismiss him. There's also the discrimination claim on his part. What do you think of this?
I think this is a crazy man.
Really?
Listen, barring that we are in the beginning of a disaster movie and we're the news people at the beginning of the disaster movie dismissing the crazy person with the files trying to tell us of the danger to come, barring that scenario, what it sounds like to me is they're in the business of AI, right? Not that I'm necessarily a proponent of us having all these robots. I think they're creepy, but not because I think they're sentient. But it sounds like they created a robot. They gave it this intelligence to act and respond in a particular way. It's doing that well, conceivably, and his response to that is, it's sentient. It has a conscience. It has a soul. We need to ask it for consent. And that is crazy. And I see why Google decided, let's get this little crazy man out of here. That's what it sounds like to me.
Well, I'm pretty compelled by Derek Thompson's point. He's a writer for The Atlantic. We're friendly. He's a very good guy. But he made the really good point that presumably, this AI would have the ability to communicate sentience before it actually experiences sentience. And so there could possibly be a disconnect between what it claims to be believing or what it claims to be experiencing versus what it actually is.
Yeah.
I'm pretty compelled by that point, and I tend to be pretty anti any sort of hysterical fear-mongering about tech because I think it's something where, since it's so unknown and there's a significant technical gap to our understanding of it, it's easy for people to really assume the worst and get very bent out of shape about it. In terms of the hiring component or the firing component specifically, I always struggle with this a little bit because we don't know what other factors contributed to, we don't know what other factors were part of this employee's record. And perhaps it looks like Google was dismissing him out of hand for this specific thing, when in reality it could just be that he was kind of a loon in general.
Yeah.
We just have no way of knowing.
See, I'm not an employment discrimination lawyer, so I won't wade into pretending to know all the different parameters that could be happening here. But I will say this. I think throughout history we've seen anytime we have major technological advancements afoot, it's an old school, theory and feeling amongst people to ferret and say, you know what, this is somehow people.
We saw this with the Gutenberg printing press.
I was going to say, we see this about so many things, even, in vitro, anything. People are so you know what I mean? Oh my gosh, you're playing God or you're doing these different things. Yeah. So it's not surprising to me, but to me, that's why I don't really think there's a super legitimacy in it, right? We've always seen this, like the Smart House movies. You see people very scared of these robots and AI. And I also think there's a difference between, sentience in a scientific context versus how we see it. I don't think, something can be, it understands what we're saying, it's participating. I'm not disagreeing with him that it's responding or, it's been programmed in a way to perceive different things you might ask it or scenarios you throw at it that it might not have been through. But I don't think that rises to the level of having a soul. And I definitely don't think your belief system that it has a soul rivals this is now a religious claim and the job is firing you based on religious grounds. I think we've made a few leaps.
Absolutely. No, I mean, the whole, I can't even touch the whole ensoulment argument because it's just what could he possibly be talking about? And
right.
How could he possibly be measuring that? Or there's a decent amount of evidence mounting to indicate that this person is a little on the loopy side.
Listen, yeah, that's my position on it. I think, I think he's probably a little bit of a, what is the politically correct word? Because I don't want to speak to his mental health. I'm not going to give him a mental health diagnosis. So I'm gonna say he's a little off. He's a little touched, a little troubled.
Well, it is interesting, though. I think your point of this is a common sentiment that we see. People are fearful of new technologies, and we really need to to some degree, like check our impulses there, because I think that leads to almost like what we were talking about at the very beginning of the show in the A block, like people, that leads to quick, hasty decision-making, hasty policy proposals being passed to attempt to regulate or to curb, worst excesses in a given industry. But a lot of the times we're reacting out of from a very emotional place of fear, and we've seen that backlash, that techlash, happen in so many ways. I mean, we see this a little bit right now with the Section 230 debate, and the degree to which people are sort of interested in treating platforms in a different manner than they've historically been treated, and holding platforms accountable for the things that people are posting on them in a way that could really winnow away at and erode free speech rights, which really concerns me as a civil libertarian.
I think I would have maybe a lot more leniency towards him. You know, when you see it initially, you think the argument he's going to make is these beings are sentient, so fair. But he's actually not making that argument.
Exactly.
He's making a far crazier argument. He's saying, I believe that this robot is sentient and has a soul, and thus we need consent from the robot to do any of the work that we're doing. And I think that might be
co-opting consent culture.
Yes,
the final
for the robots. And I can see why. But from Google's, just in the position, if you have a job, you got to do the job. If they have you there to work on these robots to do certain things, and you're talking about, oh no, we can't do that because we need the robots to consent. How do they get things done? You might have to fire you. I see it. But listen, tomorrow on Rising, Brianna and Liz will be back with another great show for you all.
Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thank you so much for watching. It was a delight being with you guys today.